Hello there everyone, welcome back to our channel. This episode is just going to be me. Today I would like to talk about something I rather enjoy, and that is history about World War II, especially the tanks and the artillery guns. I find those things very fascinating. The aircraft, the ships and stuff like that. I find these very enjoyable. I like learning about these things. And I was watching a thing a couple days ago and I heard about a tank I hadn't really heard about. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this is something I should talk about, because maybe I'm just the only one that's never heard about this. Maybe other people have. And I would like to talk about a thing called the Hellcat. No, I'm not talking about the engine. I'm talking about the tank. Now, this is a tank destroyer, which was originally designed in 1941, but it didn't see production until summer of 1943. It was finally started to put into production, but didn't see action until 1944. The summer of 1944. No, sorry, the spring of 1944. Now, this is a tank destroyer, one of the few tank destroyers that the Americans actually had. For most of you who know about the history of World War II, especially when it came to tanks, the Americans did not have very good tanks. They could build them in mass quantities, but when it came to armament and firepower, they absolutely were terrible. They couldn't really compete with the German tanks. The only way they could beat them was literally going, trying to get behind them or to the sides to take them out. And they had to be really close to do that, like 900 yards or less, where the Germans could literally go a mile and hit a Sherman tank, and it didn't matter where they hit them, it would penetrate the armor and destroy them. So the Americans designed the Hellcat because essentially they realized they needed something that could take out a tank. So they designed this and they built it. Now, this tank was a very good tank. It could move fast. It could do about, if I remember correctly, it was about 55. It could do about 55 on the highway and about 26 off-road. So it wasn't that bad. But the one advantage it did have was its main cannon. It was it was much bigger. It was 27 millimeters. It was much longer. So it could penetrate the armor of the heavier German tanks much easily. It could even penetrate the Panther tank, which some of you may know, which was one of the best tanks in the war. It could penetrate the frontal slope armor of that tank. So the Hellcat was a phenomenally well-built tank destroyer. Not saying that it didn't have some flaws. One flaw it had was its armor thickness. It only had a 1-inch armor thickness on it, which was about the thinnest armor you could put on a tank. And at that time, it was the thinnest armor they had on any tank, pretty much. So it could move fast. It could take out the enemy tanks at a rather long range, but other than that, it was pretty thinly armored. It couldn't really take any hits because of its thin armor. With that tank they focused more on the cannon because they realized that the thin armor, they had to be able to take out the tank further away. So they designed this tank. It's only saw action from the spring of 1944 to the end of World War II. After that, they stopped building it. Not that they mothballed them all, but after the war was over, they realized they didn't need this type of tank, so they stopped producing them. Now they did produce about 2,500 and I think 7 of these tanks, which is quite a bit. And after the war ended, they kind of sold these off to other countries. This tank did see action from World War II until about 1995 is when the tanks in literally the whole world, the tank finally was decommissioned and they stopped using them and they kind of just mothballed them at that point. Now, with this tank, it also was like I said, it could move pretty fast because it did have a 350 to 400 horsepower engine in it. So it had quite a bit of engine. Now, the one thing I found interesting about this tank, with what little research I could find about it, was that Buick designed this tank. And that's the Buick Motor Company for General Motors. They designed it, and from what I can figure out, built this tank. So it's kind of interesting that they built this tank, because if you think about it, they don't really mention or talk about it in the history of Buick, I found. So this was just a tank that I kind of stumbled upon and I thought was pretty interesting, because like I said, the Americans did not have tank destroyers. This was about the only one that they really had, and what was really neat about it was its kill ratio. It was literally like a 2.3 to 1 kill ratio, which is pretty good for that type of tank with that thin of armor and all that. It literally destroyed about 526 reported kills this tank did. Now, it saw most of its action in France and Germany. It did see some action in Italy. It was in the Pacific, but not all that much. It was primarily in Germany, because in Germany was where the Germans had their big, Panthers, Tigers, King Tiger tanks that were the real threat to the Americans and Allies. Or those big, heavy German tanks that could literally go through anything and everything the Allies could throw at it. And so because of that, that's where most of the Tigers, the Hellcats were sent. That's where most of them did action, and that's mostly where they were all, if you look at the stats, most of their kill ratios were in Germany and Europe. They did have some in Italy, but not that much, because over there wasn't a lot of need for a tank like that. The Sherman could do most of the work. It wasn't until Germany moved in some of their tanks was when they needed them, but that wasn't much. It was mostly, like I said, in Germany, France. Over there is where they mostly needed this tank. So the tank did see some action in the Korean War, but not so much. It was they mostly modified it to be more of a carry, like it would carry infantry, from what I can figure. It did see some action, but not a lot. The Korean War, as you know, it wasn't a heavy tank war like it was, like World War II was. So it saw most of its action and most of its service was in World War II. After that, they kind of just went, okay, we don't really need something like this anymore. It's over with. And then as time went on and they came out with better tanks, this tank just kind of disappeared over time. So like I said, I was watching a video about this on TV. I thought it was kind of cool, so I thought I'd kind of look at it, and it wasn't something I really heard about or watched or even knew about really. So I thought this was something interesting that I would kind of talk about for a brief second, let people know about, and that was really all I was planning to do in here. So I'm going to end it there because, like I said, this was more of just me blabbering about something I kind of thought was interesting and cool. Like I said, I may talk more about this tank or other tanks because, like I said, this is something I find very fascinating. So if you do like this, please comment, let me know, because I would like, because this, like I said, this is something I'm really into, something I find fascinating, interesting. So at this point, I'm simply going to say, please like and subscribe to our channel, like this video, comment on this video, let me know what you think about it, if you hated it, if you liked it. I'm not sure, it's something I like. And if you want to hear more about something else in World War II, you know, history, tanks or something, we could do that. It's something I enjoy. It's something my brother that also enjoys doing that. And it's just, you know, one of those little interesting things. So, like I said, like this video, comment on this video if you want to hear more about stuff like this. Subscribe, and please share it with your friends, let them watch it, ask them to subscribe. If they want to know something else, if they want to hear about something else, let us know. We would like to talk about it. And I would just like to say thank you for watching. And I hope you guys all have a great evening and enjoy your week. And thank you. Have a great evening.